Rob, we made it. Made it happen
Yes.
after months of planning, deliberation, chatting from the other side of the pond. Finally got you on. So happy to have you here. I actually stumbled across your account because I saw Dr. Kinga Minich, who I've actually had on the podcast, followed you, and I like went on your page and I was like, oh, Rob looks cool. I love that he's on the other side of the world. So I always love chatting to other people on the different
Yeah,
different areas, different cultures, different way of saying things. And I learned
absolutely.
some new culture when I sent you that kids book. I had to get onto the UK Amazon, and they call the cart a basket.
Yes.
I thought that
Yeah.
was kind of I feel like I like that better. It's a basket, not a cart.
Yeah. That's normal for us. It's just the basket.
Yeah. So I mean, it just tells you like how language. It could be the same language, but literally, my wife. I was telling her about that. She goes, "Yeah, I lived with a someone in college. I was from England, and he. What do you call the trash can in England?
The bin.
The bin." And she's like, "Hey, I'm looking for this." He goes, "It's gone. It's in the bin." And she's like, "What bin?" No, it's in the bin. It's gone. And my wife couldn't understand that like a bin is the trash can. Like whatever she was looking for was gone.
Yeah. And it's really funny, because the opposite way, obviously kids now, they all live on iPads and YouTube. And my child, she's only 6, and she always says, if I say, "What did you do with that thing?" She goes, "I threw it in the trash." And we're like, "Trash? What trash?" And she means the bin. But because she sees so much American stuff on YouTube, she uses a lot of American words and phrases, and we find it really funny.
It is
So,
funny. I definitely feel like there's words that we use in America that aren't as eloquent as you use on the other side of the pond.
well, without being funny, we invented the language, didn't we? So
Yes.
I think you guys have just put a spin on it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many. I mean, even when you go over to the UK, I mean, there's so many different dialects and languages. Is like you go
Yeah,
to Kentucky versus someone in New York. Like we're all speaking the same language, but everyone has a different way of saying things.
yeah.
And
Well,
I'm
over
sure you
here,
see that too.
it's a bit like when you guys call the pavement a sidewalk.
Hmm.
It's like it's a pavement. It's just a pavement,
It's all the
but
pavement.
a sidewalk. But you kind of made it almost exact. It's the walk on the side of the road, the sidewalk, when it's just a pavement. But yeah, so it's very interesting knowing these slight changes, even though we all speak English.
I don't know. There's English and then English.
Yeah,
Yeah,
love
and
it.
I mean that just comes down to I mean speaking about language, I mean someone could be saying something and it could almost be like offensive to someone, especially if they don't understand something.
Hmm.
However, if someone has like a good mindset, maybe someone says something that they don't quite understand, and I know that's what you got into is like helping people with their mindset and things like that.
Yeah,
So, like how did you discover you had this ability to help people with overcoming certain things such as like maybe like mind knots or I see a
yeah.
lot of people like friends doing the same thing over and over. Like they get stuck in like an never ending loop of just doing the same thing. And I mean, it's
Hmm.
like, it's pretty crazy. Like you see people doing that.
Yeah, it's insane, really. I'm fascinated. I'm just fascinated by human behavior, why we do what we do. And it started from a very, very young age. But me doing this as a business, as a career, as what I do was only about 12 years ago, full time, 15 years ago, part time. But I've had a love of it and an interest in it for 35 years, I think.
Hmm.
And um, but me starting to do it started from a car crash about 13 years ago, serious car crash, head-on collision. I was airlifted to hospital, nearly died, and was smashed up all over basically, and was I think I crashed January the 20th, and I didn't go back to work for nearly a year. So
Mm.
But that was the catalyst. But to really understand the story, you have to go back, way back, further back than that. In fact, right back to when I was born. And I was born in Singapore because my parents were in the Royal Air Force and we traveled around the world. And while we were based in Singapore, that's when they had me. And my mum and dad are Jamaican descent. Then from there, we went to Cyprus. That's my first memories is Cyprus because that's where I grew up. I went to school at first. And then from there, Germany and a few stops. And then we went back to the UK because my parents wanted us to grow up in a settled environment. And the place we was in the UK back then, which was the late early 80s, was very racist, very tough, hard time of the world was different then, as we all know, and it was a tough time. And for these two little black boys, me and my brother, these little RAF kids who were extremely well spoken and very well brought up and everything, and then we was dropped in this like inner city urban sprawl council estate. I don't know what they call it in America, but you know, where the housing is given to you by the government,
Hmm.
but council estate, and it was tough. And we was fighting every day, getting beaten up, picked on, called names, all the rest of it. So I was always a very inquisitive kid. Used to drive my mother insane, asking her questions. Why is the sky blue? Why is it? And I couldn't be palmed off with, oh, just because it is. I needed the technical exact answer. And when all this trouble and everything was going on, I started boxing to try and help myself because I was only like that, obviously, when I was 7 or 8 years of age. And I just took to it really well and did very, very well and got up to sort of almost national level and did very, very well. But I was inquisitive still, even with the boxing. And I was like, how come that boxer is better than that one? How come I'm just as fit as him, just as strong as him, just trained just as hard? Why is he better? And very quickly, I started to realize that it wasn't down to skill set, it was down to mindset. So people were talking about mindset a couple of times, but in those days, there were no coaches or consultants or any of this sort of stuff. And there was no internet, there was no Google, there was no social media. So I went to my mother again. Mum, what's mindset? What is this thing? I want to study it. And she was like, go look it up in we had Encyclopedia Britannicas back then in England. And they were like pretty much big dictionaries, but with all I'm sure you had something similar in America, but that's what everyone got their information from. And so I'd look up mindset. And then there was a lot of offshoots from that to psychology, human behavior, the brain, things like that. So I got fascinated by this thing and I was like, what is all this stuff? And where I was in this inner city, tough estate, tough area, nobody knew about psychologists or things like that. The only
Hmm.
psychologist we heard about was on the movies when you'd hear some American guy saying, I'm off to see my shrink or something. And we was like, what's that? Nobody knew what a psychologist, nobody could afford a psychologist even where we were. So I started to study this stuff, but I couldn't share that with my friends because they'd be like, what are you talking about? I couldn't say I've got this new book on psychology. I really want to read it. I'm not coming out to play in the streets. They'd have beaten me up or something. So I studied it for years on my own and I got into it more and more and just became a fascination for me about human behavior and also more so about why as humans we're so intelligent. We've sent man to the moon, we've done amazing things, but we do lots of very, very silly, stupid things as human beings on a smaller level, not like building massive buildings or sending people to space. I'm on about everyday small things that we do very silly that are detrimental to us, like not eating the right foods or
Hmm.
going to bed late or, you know, not exercising. Simple stuff that's very, very easy to change and will have significant impacts on our quality of our lives, longevity of our lives, but we still don't do it. And that became a fascination for me because I started to think, yeah, but we all know this. Why don't we do it? There's got to be something in the circuitry of the brain that is stopping that happening. So then I started to study that. But throughout all this, when I left school, I didn't go to university. I just wanted to make money. So I just started to throw myself into the world of work and again did quite well at that. I went into sales and I did well and moved through the corporate ladder and got into sales management, then in sales director of a couple of companies. Um, but I always wanted to do this. And I had a big limiting belief, a big mindset block about it because, as I say now to clients, everybody has got this one sentence. One sentence. Some people have got many of them, but we've all got one as a minimum. One sentence that probably holds you back. And if anyone's listening to this right now, ask yourself the question, but it'll be one sentence that's holding you back from doing something you really want to do in life. And it could be in any area. It could be physically, it could be your relationships, it could be your business, it could be your career. But there's one sentence that stops people doing things. And it can be, I'm not educated enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm
Hmm.
not bright enough, whatever it may be. But there is usually something that's holding us back. And mine was I'm just Rob from Bramley in Leeds, this estate in Leeds. I'm just Rob from Bramley in Leeds. I'm this little black kid with no degree who's really into all this psychological stuff. And who's going to listen to me helping them with their brain and psychology with this kid who grew up in this tough estate with no degree? So even though I was doing very, very well in my corporate world and doing everything, building sales teams and doing extremely well, I just had this massive mindset block that just said, you can't do that because nobody will take you seriously. And then one day, in fact, I've got it here, somebody gave me this. And this is a cassette tape, if anyone's listening to this and not seeing it. It's an old cassette tape. It's a Tony Robbins cassette tape. For those people who don't know him, you'll have to Google it to find out. But Tony Robbins is kind of like the guru of what I do. And this is from 1991. And he gave me this tape when it was brand new. And he said, you're into this stuff. Have a listen to this. So I put it in my car, forgot about it for a week. Then I was going to a friend of mine's house who was about 20 minutes away. And I'm driving along and I remembered the tape. So I thought, oh, I'll stick that in whilst I'm driving. So I did. And it blew me away. Tony was going to this thing that he does, and he's in front of 10,000 people in this auditorium and he's changing lives and doing his thing and doing a lot of human behavior and things like that. And I was blown away. I was a young guy and I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. But I didn't know what that was because those days there was no coaches, like I said, and there was none of these things that's just commonplace now. Everybody's a mindset coach, everybody's a life coach, everybody, there's millions of them. So that's another reason why I hate titles. I don't really I'm a mindset consultant stroke coach, but I don't really like the title. I just like to help people live a fulfilled and happy life and get past the blocks that are stopping them from doing that. So that's where it all started. But I had this limiting belief that lasted 18 years. I never acted on it for 18 years, the best part of 2 decades, until fast forward that accident, the car accident that I told you about. Once I had that accident, I was airlifted to hospital in a helicopter. And whilst I was recovering, all that was going through my mind is, wow, Rob, you almost died and you never tried to live the life you always wanted to live. You never tried to do that thing that you wanted to do. You let fear hold you back all this time, and you could have died and lived an unfulfilled life. And it scared me a little. And I thought, right, the first opportunity I get to do coaching and help people, I'm going to take it. And shortly after coming out of hospital, um, I bumped into someone who later became my mentor, and he was the catalyst for helping me get past that limiting belief from 20 years previous, of not thinking I was good enough or worthy, even though I've been studying this stuff now for 30 years. And um, sorry, and have been on courses and read everything that's pretty much been printed about what I do. Um, and he helped me get past that belief. And now that put me on a course to say, hey, I want to help 1 million people around the world get past their one sentence, their limiting belief that's holding them back from doing what they want to do. And not just individuals, but I go into businesses as well. I work with a lot of sports people as well that are being held back by just something in their mind. So long-winded answer, but that's it. That's how it all came about.
Hmm. Yeah, mindset, it's like the easiest example for me, the like first thought that comes to mind is like sports, how mindset is
Yeah.
so important in sports because you could see an athlete perform and it's just
Hmm.
like very easy to relate to that person. Like the first person I thought of was Roger Bannister when you're talking about mindset.
Mm.
Like the first man to run a
Yep.
4 minute mile. Like no one, it's impossible. No one's ever done it. And then he like put in a system and he trained and he put in basically an equation on how many steps he needs to take. And he like put in a full system. And then eventually he was the first person to do it. And now a ton of people have ran a
Yeah.
sub 4 minute mile. But it's like if no one's until that first person does it, people believe it can't be done until
Yeah.
that one person does
Well,
it.
before him, they actually said if someone does it, their heart would explode. So people just didn't think it was possible. Now, like you said quite rightly, once something's done, the mindset shifts. And this is what I work on a lot with people is about a mindset shift, shifting perspectives, shifting the way we see or look at things. And once everyone's mindset shifted about running a 4 minute mile, I think about 30 people did it in the next 6 months. It was crazy. Everyone was doing it. It was easy. And again, that's the power of the mind. That's the difference once self-belief is activated in the mind.
Yeah, because ability can only take you so far.
Yep.
If you have a strong mental aptitude and no matter what you're doing, and you go up against someone who you look at them, you're like, this person's way better than me, but I know something that they don't. And you can play like mind games with someone. You can like get into their psyche a little bit, especially in sports. Like if you're not as athletic as someone and you could get into their mind, like you know what they're going to do, or you do one thing to like throw them off their game and they could have a terrible game just because you know how to play the game within the game.
Yes.
And I mean, in life, it's no different. I mean, how many people do you meet with who had a business idea and they just never did anything? And they're like, oh, it's been 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I just never did it.
Lots. Lots. And
When people
and
tell me they're going to start a business and they want me to help them, like set it up, I go, I don't think you're ever going to start it.
mm,
And they look at me and they laugh. And they're like, no, I'm going to do it. I go, okay, I hope you prove me wrong. And I would say none of those people have ever hit me up,
yeah,
ever. And
yeah.
I'm not saying it to be like a jerk. I'm just saying, like, I don't think you're going to do it.
I work with a lot of people like that and have to help them get past because all there is something in their mind that has caused them to do that. There's a block. And
Hmm.
again, it goes back to that one sentence that I talk about. In the book, I'm writing a book at the moment, and I'm going to talk about the one sentence. And we've all got it. And that's what stops people doing that. You're right. There's millions of people around the world like that who've got a business idea or something they'd love to do, and they probably bore their friends with all the time at dinner parties how they're going to do it. And yeah, I'm going to do this thing and everything. And their friends kind of maybe nudge each other and know that it's never going to happen. They've been talking about it for 10 years. It's not going to happen. And it's because inside their subconscious, somewhere, there's that sentence playing over on repeat. You can't do this because, I don't know, you failed at school or you're just not good enough or you're just not experienced enough or whatever it is playing over for them is what's stopping them doing it. Otherwise, they'd do it.
Hmm. Well,
But you're right, sports people have the same thing as well.
yeah. I mean, the world gives you clues though. Like if you're really good at something and you're like, see like two, three, four people are asking for your help to do something, then you're
Yeah.
like, all right, maybe I do have a skill here. And I see a lot of people, what they get stuck in is they become just a helper in certain situations and they don't know how to turn that into a profitable business. They just end up like, yeah, I'll help you. Like, I won't charge you anything, no big deal. But now you start to become a person that people know can help them, and you'll do it for free. I mean, that's a great deal for all your friends and family, but that
Hmm.
doesn't help the person.
Yeah. And again, it's just a block, isn't it? But you'll find very competent people get blocked as well. So that's where we start looking at some of the sports people I work with. Some of them are very, very good, very competent, but they still find blocks. When you look at top sports people, like you mentioned, like you can say tennis, you've got um, Novak Djokovic and people like that, the world's best, and they work with mindset people, the England football team, the American football team, they work with sports performance people. And these people are at the top of their game, but there's still that extra 1 or 2% that if you can get and unlock, it can make all the difference to the results that you're getting because your thoughts correlate with your behavior and your behavior gives you your results. So if you can reverse engineer that, if you want to improve results, you have to improve behavior. But to improve behavior, you have to change the thoughts. So everything starts with thoughts. So once people can get into the psyche of what someone's thinking, it can improve them on results at the end.
Yeah. I get a ton of people attempting to sell me their services in some sort of way.
Mm,
And I tell them I'm not buying anything until 2026. I'm taking 2025 off from like working from anyone because I know what I need to work on.
mm,
It's just a matter of giving it time to come to fruition and ultimately realizing that you have a problem and accepting that it's okay to have problems because where there's problems, there's a solution. You just have to admit there's a problem versus some people are like, I'll go to the gym tomorrow or, I'll eat healthy on Monday. I'm just going to binge eat this weekend, like one more weekend, one
mm.
more bonus at work.
It that people do that, but the problem is they can't turn it off.
Hmm.
So they carry on and on and on, sometimes, depending what it is. So it's learning to understand that your brain often works against you, but you have to remember that your brain is you and it loves you. It's you, it doesn't want to do you harm. Its job from waking up in the morning to going to sleep at night, fundamentally, and please, anyone listening, don't hit me up on this, but in general, your brain's job fundamentally from waking up to going to sleep is to protect you, to avoid pain or discomfort and take you towards pleasure. That's its job. And it can be anything. I don't mean pain as in avoid you breaking your leg and stuff. That's a given. But it could be as simple as avoid hoovering up, vac I don't know what they're saying. Is that right in America? Hoovering, vacuuming the floor. Um, Tidying up, avoid doing the dishes. It can be as simple as that. And it'll just be a little voice going, hey, leave it. Nobody's coming round tonight. Just leave it. We'll do it in the morning. And as soon as you make that decision not to do it, you feel good, don't you? Oh, I'm not going to do it now. That's okay. And you get a little drop of dopamine hit in the brain. It's the feel good drug. And then next time, that's what your brain searches for again, that nice feel good hit. And that's why things start to happen. And then they become a habit. And then it becomes what you do as the norm. So you leave things to the very end until that untidy house becomes so bad that then that becomes the thing you have to do right now. And whatever else you need to do becomes the other thing your brain pushes away. So it flips then. And it's like, right, I need to get this done. Oh, but what about that? That's really important. We have to finish this up. No, I need to tidy this up. It's just ridiculous. I can't even move. And you get it done. But you don't want to always wait until something's at breaking point before we
Hmm.
make changes, you see.
Do you ever work with anyone that has the opposite program?
In
I mean, the
terms of,
opposite problem, like they don't know when to stop. Like, like,
yes.
hey, there's no time for breaks. Like, I feel like it's rare, but there are people out there like that. Like, I
Yeah.
know, watching like the documentary The Last Dance, and like the Michael Jordan's trainer was like, I'd have to tell him to stop. Like, you
Yeah.
need to stop
Yeah.
because he would never
Well,
stop unless someone like told him to.
there's people like that, a lot of people like that. And they excel there. These are people who want to excel, but they overdo it, and it can be then be detrimental to them. So again, a good coach will talk them down from that and hopefully be able to show them the benefits of taking rest, of slowing down a little bit. But even then, when they do, you'll find that these people are still, the average person might be here and then they'll still be, 10 paces above them. So even when they're going slower and slowing down, people like Kobe Bryant and Michael, their chilling pace was way, way past what most people's hardcore really was. So, you've got to sometimes fight your own battles. You've got to look at it and think, okay, where do I want to be in life and how much am I going to put into it? And then it's a case of um, looking at where that individual is. I can hear my child in the background there shouting, so I'm just thinking she might come bursting in here any second now.
Oh,
So,
that's fine.
all right, bear with me if it
I brought my
happens.
little daughter on many video chats, and it's a good test to see who you're dealing with, because if you bring like your child or someone like comes into the room and they just don't know you're on a meeting, I feel like it's a good indicator of like what is the mindset of the other person that you're dealing with. A
Mm,
person that is understanding isn't going to care at all. A person who's like, this is a business call, how could you be so unprofessional? It's almost
yeah,
like they're telling you like, hey, probably not a good person to deal with.
yeah. I think there'd be a bit of a douchebag to be honest, but hey, yeah. Um, it is what it is. So, but yeah, in terms of that, oh sorry, I lost my track there. Sports people were on about, wasn't we?
Talking about not stopping, like
Yeah, there's
having the
people like that.
having the pull back.
And there's people like that in business, same thing, or in everyday life, it's like the mother that'll never stop. She's always tidying, always cleaning, always running after the kids, always doing something. And you have to literally say, look, chill out, put your feet up, watch some TV, relax. There's just that type of person. But it's like anything, everything has to be in moderation because there is a level where you can go too far and it becomes destructive.
Hmm. Did you talk about what was your limiting belief before you decided to jump full force into doing this as a business and giving up your job?
Yeah, I had to break that down and I had to overcome it because it will always hold you back. And even now, sometimes it tries to poke its head up and just, depending now, it's not so much, but it's more depending on what company I'm in. Like if I'm going to some talks somewhere and there's some real high-powered people there who've been in the game a long time, or they're very, very successful business people, multimillionaires, things like that, and they've got big organizations. Sometimes I just get that little thought, oh, are they judging me? Do they think, who is this guy? What's he ever done? What's he, so I have to shake it off and just I've got a few techniques that I use and I go back inside my mind and then I look at my wins and look at the things I've done over the years, look at the 35 years of study, look at all the things that I've done, all the courses, all the books that I've read, and believe in yourself and just say, no, you know your shit. Go in there, chin up, chest out, and deliver. And that's what I do. And then it always works out well in the end.
Yeah, I mean, just because someone has on paper more money than you doesn't mean you
Mm,
can't overtake them or
yeah.
be more successful than them, even if they're light years ahead of you.
Or
Plenty of
help.
people lose it all.
Yeah, or help them, just because they're up there, you can still help them. One of my clients turns over 49 million a year. He's got a massive construction company and he's one of my clients. And he's far more successful than I am, but I can still help him because it's mindset. That's what I do. It's about helping him as an individual. It's not me knowing more about his construction work than he does. It's me knowing more about him than what he does in his mind. So it doesn't really matter to me what the person does in terms of sports, business, career, life in general. Um, I always say I can help anyone who's got a brain. So pretty much everyone.
Hmm. Did you have to overcome in your mind when you like deal with people who are on paper maybe more successful than you are coming to you in the beginning, like when you first started this journey?
Massively. Yes, massively. That was a big hurdle to overcome. The first one who came to me who was pretty successful. Yeah, that was tough. That was tough. That was you're like looking at these people and the things they've achieved and what they've got and the sizes of their companies and stuff like that. And of course it makes you think, but again, you've got to believe in yourself. Then those times, I would say it's more you're almost um having to you kind of BSing it, you're kind of just soldiering on and hoping that what you know is enough. But then with experience and time and doing and dealing with lots of clients, you become more comfortable and more confident in what you do because you've been doing it for years and you've had great successes with people. So you, I don't believe in confidence. That's a controversial thing I say to a lot of my clients. There's no such thing as confidence. It's competence. Um, because for me, if you think about driving, when you learn to drive, especially in England, because most people drive stick in England, um, you have to learn all these complicated things, dip the clutch, get biting point, holding it, getting gear, check your mirrors and all this. And at first it seems impossible and you're very nervous. And then all of a sudden you're doing it whilst you're talking and looking out the window and all this stuff. Um, so what's happened is you didn't become more confident, you just became more competent at driving, right? So then you became more confident at driving because your competence improved. And it's the same with everything. It's just competence. So as I became more competent, I became more confident with those people who were more successful. And that's now it's at a point where I honestly believe I could be in front of, I don't even know, you name it, pull out a big name, I don't know, some top sports person or top business person. You could put me in front of Richard Branson, and I know I could hold my own and have a conversation with him and be able to teach him something. Um, Obviously, if it was somebody like Tony Robbins, I might struggle a little because I've learned most of what he's taught, and I've read and listened to nearly everything he's ever done. So I'm sure I would be, but I'd love to still meet him and sit down and talk with him. I wouldn't be put off, put it like that. Mm.
Yeah,
We can,
it can
we
be
can
challenging
learn.
when you know about all about someone and it's the first time they're meeting you and you're like, oh man, like I've always wanted to meet this person and they're a real person. They're here in front of me. And that's
Mm,
important is people are just people,
right?
regardless of what accolades they have or whatnot. I mean, one of the biggest things for me is when I shifted a few years ago to start charging for a consultation. And it wasn't a big amount of money.
Mm,
It was like $20. I'd
mm,
say, hey, $20 to meet with me. And if you hate me, I'll give you your money back. But that was scary because you get people say, why would I pay $20? And then I realized those are the people you don't want to work with anyway.
hmm.
Because it's
Absolutely.
like, hey, if you don't value me as a professional for the same price that it costs to just buy yourself lunch, basically, then you're not going to see value in anything that I do.
Absolutely.
Because those people think they can find everything on the internet. And you can find a lot of things on the internet, or you could read all of those books that are behind you. But
Yeah.
how much time did it take you to read all of those books?
All my life.
So basically, like by investing with someone, you're speeding up the amount of time it's going to take you to consume the knowledge that's taken you years. So now
Yeah.
you're taking years and condensing it into weeks or months. And the faster you can accelerate towards your goal, the faster you could achieve it. And that's where I feel like a lot of people don't understand.
Absolutely. And books, um, everything, cassette tapes, all these things, all these things are fantastic. However, they you can't get into the nuance of things with them. And also, what I always say is if a lot of things that are written down, depending on what the topic is, it can be out of date very, very quickly. Like a book I've read probably only about 5 months ago was all about social media. And it was giving you lots of tips and tricks on social media. The book is literally obsolete. I was reading it and I was thinking, this is done because it's moved on. You know, it's changed. The algorithms changed. Everything's moved on. So by the time you've written a book, got it published, gone through all the publishing and everything else, it's a year is something, you know, it's like that, whatever you're writing about. But obviously in my game, it's a bit different because things don't change much. So it's great. I can read old books and get old information because the human brain, the amygdala, the different parts of it, your prefrontal cortex, how it comes through. Obviously, we're learning things all the time, but in general, the way it works is pretty much the same as it's been for hundreds and hundreds of years. So we can get away with that. But yes, it took me a long time to read them, but it's much, much better. You know, I've been studying and reading stuff that, say, Tony Robbins has done for since 91, 92, but I would much rather spend 3 months with Tony Robbins and that's it. So I'd learn a lot more just doing that. So yes, getting around people is much better than just being a studier. At some point, you have to act, you have to do, and that's when you learn. You learn the theory when you're learning to drive and you go on a few driving lessons. But when we all know when you really learn to drive is when you've passed your test and you're out there driving every day.
Mm-hmm.
So
You can't just practice.
yeah,
You gotta you gotta play the game.
you got to do, right? You got to do, you got to make shit happen, right? So sorry about swearing on here.
It's all
But
good.
you've got to make it happen. And that's what it's all about. That's the winners in life. They get out there and they get in the arena and they do. There's a lot of people on the edges and people who are watching who can be critics or critique, but you don't make anything of any note by being a critique. You know, you've got to get in there and get dirty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's why there's tests. You practice and then you take the test, and the test tells you how well do you know the material when there's some pressure.
Yes, that's
So
it.
it's very easy to play when there's no pressure or there's no stakes. You have nothing to lose. I just did a video and I was at a wedding and a friend came up to me and was like, "Yeah, man, the video, the title was it, I'm a loser." And he goes,
Mm,
"Yo, man, you're not a loser." I go, "Well, did you watch the video?" And I explained to him, I go, "You know what the cool thing about being a loser is? You got nothing to lose. So might as well win." And that was the idea. It was like, hey, if you think you're a loser, you might as well just play anyway because everyone expects you to lose. So if you win, that could be really beautiful.
That's a good you know what I said at the beginning, near the beginning, when I was talking about shifting mindset, shifting perspective. That's a good shift in perspective. It's a good reframe of how to look at things because you're essentially saying, listen, you've got nothing to lose. So play to win, go all out. Because there should be no fear in that person. If somebody came to me and said, I'm a loser, I'm struggling, I can't seem to shift this loser mindset, I need help, that would be one of the areas I take them down. Because if you believe that, if you believe that's true, because some people might say it and not believe it's true, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference to find that out first. But if you believe that's true, you've got nothing to lose. You're already at rock bottom, right? So the mindset has to be, hey, let's do this. Let's go all in. Let's just go all in because if you're a loser, what have you got to lose?
Nothing.
Right?
But people get scared about that.
No, but I believe that's different. People only get scared about that if deep down they don't believe they're a loser.
Hmm.
Real losers, real losers, the kid who got bullied at school and he's always at the back of the class. Then he left school and he was the guy at the back of the nightclub and he didn't approach any women or anything. And and he never had any friends and he didn't get out much. And the real kind of in inverted brackets loser, I wouldn't want to call him that, but you know, that guy has nothing to lose if he believes that's how he is and he's been that way a long time. Most people who are scared, like you say, that's because deep down they don't really think they're a loser. They just don't think they're that good and they've got something to lose. So there's a bit of a difference there. But a real loser, it's just about getting him to shift his perspective and realize, hey, man, listen, I agree. You're not very good. I wouldn't call him a loser, but I'd say you're not very good at many things. However, there are some real hidden talents in there that even you might not know about. Let's have a look at them and let's bring them out. And then start to look at certain areas of his uh, mindset and his past and see which areas we can dispel to help move him forward because everybody's got something. All that mindset is learnt behavior. It's a learnt way of thinking because he wasn't born a loser. Nobody's born a loser. Everybody's born a clean slate. In fact, unless it's changed recently, we're actually only born with two things, a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises, I believe. So we're all born clean slated, but somewhere along the line, we're conditioned, usually between the ages of 0 and 8 years of age, with something that's playing out in us as adults as well, which is kind of scary, really. That most of our control dramas, most of the things that affect us happened before we was 10 years of age, which is quite disappointing to know. But if something's happened negatively to that person, that's how he's become a loser. He might have got shouted at, he might have got beaten up in school when he was 5 or 6, and it's just knocked him back. That's all. But these things can be overcome and gotten past.
Hmm. Yeah, it's important to measure when you make that shift from the time you make that shift
Mm.
forward, and everything else that happened doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's
Doesn't
gone.
matter
Live in the now. And that's it. It's gone. It's gone.
for sure. Well, Rob, this was fun. Thanks for everyone for listening. We'll see everyone next time. Bye bye.